So we will go ahead and get started here. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody has had a great week. Welcome to our virtual seminar series here, hosted by the Center for Disaster Research and Education. Today, we are very excited to welcome one of our own adjunct professors, Paul Benyeda. He will be speaking on certifications for emergency managers through IAEM. First, a little bit about Mr. Benyeda. Mr. Paul J. Benyeda is a former member of Adams County Local Emergency Planning Committee and a volunteer in the Adams County Emergency Operations Center, and holds a Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency professional certification for county emergency management staff. In June 2008, Mr. Benyeda received the International Association of Emergency Managers Certified Emergency Manager designation. Mr. Benyeda recertified as a CEM in 2008, 2013, and again in 2018. Mr. Benyeda has completed EMI's Master Trainer Program and Master Exercise Practitioner Program. Mr. Benyeda is a retired course manager and training specialist for FEMA's Emergency Management Institute. He joined FEMA in 2006 and was the course manager for the EMI State Field Deliver courses, as well as resident courses at EMI, including the Community Emergency Response Team courses. Mr. Benyeda was deployed to New Jersey after Superstorm Sandy and was the EMI course manager and graduate of the inaugural delivery of the Emergency Management Basic Academy. Prior to joining FEMA, Mr. Benyeda was the state training officer for the Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. His responsibilities included coordination of all federally funded training programs for the state and conducted training in various emergency management topics for state departments and municipalities. His duties also include coordination of the statewide exercise program. Before joining the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, Mr. Benyeda was the emergency management coordinator for the Manchester Fire Rescue EMS Department, developing and implementing disaster preparedness and response plans for the town of Manchester, Connecticut. He introduced the Community Emergency Response Team program to the community, was vice chairman for the Capital Region Emergency Planning Committee, and also the chairman of Emergency Support Function number 16, and chairman of the Capital Region Citizen Corps Council. He received his Master of Science in Emergency Management from Millersville University and is currently an adjunct instructor in Millersville's MSEM program, teaching graduate and undergraduate classes. At this point, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Benyeda, and the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Brian, and I'm glad to be here today. This presentation was requested by Dr. H. I think everybody on the list knows him. We've done this a couple times before in the past, just to let everybody kind of get on the same page about what the AEM and the CEM designations are. I'm glad to see a lot of names up in the participant block that I've seen in classes before, so that's a good thing. Hopefully this will help you as we go along. Now, this presentation was originally IAEM on their webpage. They had a canned presentation for it, but since they had that developed, there have been a number of changes to the program, and a lot of them we all think is very good. So I kind of built new ones sort of based on that. Their old presentation had a lot of information on it, and I've kind of pared some of that down. I'll tell you where to find it, because there's so much information on the program, you can't stick it all in your head in one sitting. You kind of take it piece by piece, go through it in steps to see what you have to do. So that's what I want to kind of do with this and go along and show you why we got there, what the CEM, AEM means, how it benefits you in the long term, and things like that. Oh, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box or just, raise your hand. Okay, why earn the certification? I know that's the question that you're all asking. Why should I go through more? I've already spent, 4 years, 8 years trying to get the degree. So why in the world do I want to spend more time, to get another certification, another piece of paper? 100% of CEM surveyed in 2022 noted that the IAEM certification program positively impacts the emergency management workforce. In that way, when we're looking at it, we look at, we've kind of have a common background, a common understanding. We have a common background and a common understanding as we're going through this. So that's one of the ways. 91% of CEMs reported that the IAEM certification process helps establish a career benchmark within the emergency management workforce. 86.4 indicate that at least one aspect of their competence to manage an emergency management program improved as a result of getting IAEM. A little while ago, IAEM came out with this certified success thing, and it's basically a way of showcasing the number of people who have earned either AEM or CEMs throughout the year. So right now we have just over 3,000 who have earned AEM, CEM certificates. So it's a recognition. It's earned by those who demonstrate a strong understanding of the emergency management field through knowledge, experience, work history, training, education, and contributions. So this is the logo they're using for it, 1993 to 2018. It's a showcase of the certified emergency managers and associate emergency managers. So IAEM was founded in 1952, so it's not a new organization. It's been around a number of years. It originally started as the U.S. Civil Defense Council, becoming the National Coordinating Council of Emergency Management in 1983, and it became the International Association of Emergency Management in 1997. In 1999, it was recognized IAEM had to restructure itself to truly develop basically an international emergency management professional program. The association director, with the formation of the International Development Council, worked on how IAEM could become truly international without doing harm to its core membership in the United States. So there were a number of steps they took between 2001 and 2017. They worked on bylaws. They worked on establishing international regions. So we have a USA region. We have an IAEM Canada. We have an IAEM Europa, an IAEM Oceania, and an IAEM Asia. In 2007, the IAEM membership, that was the full membership at that time, approved the global bylaws. Today, IAEM has more than 6,000 members worldwide. For the CEM and AEM process, they started looking at the professional aspects of the job, what we have to do, what we have to know. Between 89 and 93, they collected input from practitioners who were experienced in dealing with all types of hazards, every size jurisdiction, all disciplines related to emergency management. And you kind of think that maybe there aren't that many, but once we start breaking it down, there's a lot of other people who have input to us. We've got health, we've got engineering, we've got public works. They're all part of our family. The input resulted in analysis of the job of emergency management, including 9 functions, and that included public information, training, management, and all of the protection, mitigation, things like that. Okay, in 1991, IAEM compiled a report on professional requirements for emergency managers in each state. Basically, that was to make sure that the requirements put forth by the IAEM didn't contradict anything that the states had already developed for their own certification programs for emergency management, because a lot of states do have their own. So the idea was to make sure that there was no conflicts and nothing that IAEM was doing would interfere with some state requirement. Okay, so we have 2 different levels of certification. We have the Associate Emergency Manager and we have the Certified Emergency Manager. For the associate level, we need 100 hours of emergency management training. That's topic specific to the profession. So that's going to be like training exercises, preparedness work, any kind of courses that relate to that. So it can be content that can be applied directly beyond emergency management to the community. No more than 25% of hours can be in a single topic, and these courses have to be considered within 10 years. So I kind of got a note here I want to look at. When we go through it, there's a certain way that IAM looks at your hours that you're putting into it. An emergency management training, while it may be the content of a related discipline, must be substantially related to emergency management to receive credit. One college semester hour is equal to 15 hours. One official continuing education unit, CEO, is 10 hours. So if we work on a baccalaureate degree, basically this would meet that requirement. I know when I recertified the first time, I completed my MSCM between the first and second certification. And for all of my training, all 200 hours, I just took all the information from all the courses I did at Millersville, put them in the form for the recertification, and I met all of my hours, and I really didn't have to do anything else above getting the bachelor's degree. So it does help with that. The course may list more than 25 hours if you look at the way they kind of figure things out, but you can only take 25 hours to it. We say one college semester is 15 hours. We need 25 hours in a topic. So basically one college course can be worth more than the 25% of the hours, but we can only submit the 25 hours for it. We can't go above that. So that's just kind of a little bit of a clarification. For associate, you have to have one letter of reference signed on letterhead from the current supervisor, plus contact information, and you need 3 references. So this is so that if there are any questions, they can go back and verify it, make sure that you've actually done a lot of the things that you said you've done. Okay, we have a certification exam. It's 120 questions. You have to get at least 70 on it. 20 questions they consider pre-test, so they will not be scored. So you don't have to kind of worry about all of them. They know what they score, what they don't. There is what they call an exam blueprint, which is basically a breakdown of the exam. When you go to the IAEM webpage that shows the certification levels for the AEM, you'll see a link there that says exam blueprint. If you go to that, that will give you 3 pages of the exam blueprint, and it has 8 categories in it. Like the first one is conduct risk management duties. That's worth 6.45% of the exam. And that's things like conduct program gap analysis, conduct threat hazard identification and risk assessment, ETHIRA. So that's in there. The second category is manage preparedness programs, and that's the highest category of the group. That's worth 21.65%, and that's manage emergency management projects, ensure operational readiness of an EOC, create emergency checklists, promote stakeholder engagement. Questions similar to that. The next one is 6.24%. That's manage mitigation. Implement mitigation protocols, identify mitigation activities. The fourth category is coordinate incident response. That's worth 20%. So far, the preparedness and incident response are basically real close to half the exam. And this is coordinate incident response, communicate with stakeholders, prepare situation reports, manage crisis communications. There's a lot of information in here that if you spend a few years, you're going to end up doing, if not all of it, the majority of it. Manage recovery operations, that's in here for 11.14%. That's manage disaster recovery funding, coordinate emergency engagement opportunities. We also have manage emergency management-based technologies, that's 5%. Perform administrative duties, that's 18.73%. So that's the number 3 category that we've got. And for those of you, if you're in the profession now, you're going to realize that there is a good percent of time you spend on administrative stuff. We don't like to admit it, but a lot of the daily things we do are more administrative than they are being really the emergency manager. And engage in professional development activities. That's 10.5%. So basically, that's building networks, contacts, resources, other professionals, other emergency managers. Those are things that Being part of IEM and working with them are one of the things that are pretty easy to do as we go along throughout the process. Okay, now we go to the certified emergency manager. This is where we kind of up the um, the requirements a little bit. One thing I did say that they knocked a couple things out of the requirements for these is back some years ago we used to have I can't remember if it was 1,000 or a 1,500 word essay that the CEM commission would just send us a topic and then we would have to pump out this essay and send it to them, and they would review it and see how we handled it. They did away with the essay requirement, so that was one of the things that we were all happy of. So to move up to CEM, we have to have emergency management work history, 3 years of comprehensive emergency management experience. We have to have professional contributions, 6 separate contributions completed within the last 10 years. So you've got a 10-year span to get this and your courses done if you really haven't started to collect your data. So, I see a couple names that I know up there that have been around the program for a few years. So now it's time to start looking at how much of this can you do if you've hit your 3 years time frame. I know one of the things they want to do, and I'll kind of talk about that in a second, is they would like all the people who are applying for it to work with somebody who's a CEM so that we kind of review their programs, review what they've done, made recommendations to make sure things look good on our end of it. I know just last year I worked with a recent graduate from Millersville who had been almost 10 years from her graduation. And she was working to get her CEM. She had basically all the things done. And then when we started looking at that, looking at her time frame, she already had a bachelor's degree. So all she really needed was the educational requirements. She just listed them all out, sent in her information on education and all of the professional contributions that she's done. Everything was completed within the last 10 years. And last December, she got her CEM at the conference. So, if you're getting close to that time, you've got your 3 years and you're getting close to, 10 years from your degree, maybe you should start looking at it. Okay. Here we are. Emergency management experiences. You have to participate in 2 functional exercises, a major public event, a full-scale exercise or actual disaster, and they have to cover all phases of emergency management. Okay, for CEM, originally there wasn't a degree requirement. That was added on when they started looking at it, and more people got into the profession and says, there are things that the degree does help with. So they made it a baccalaureate degree. It doesn't necessarily have to be in emergency management. Mine was in an engineering field, so mine sufficed for that, and then I just added the master's above it. Depending on how current your degree is, that's why we have to make sure you've met it. Candidates cannot use their degree to both satisfy the educational requirement and the training hours. So in other words, if you have a baccalaureate, you just got your baccalaureate, it's in emergency management, you can count that for your baccalaureate degree. You can't count that for your baccalaureate degree and your educational requirements at the same time. So they have to be 2 totally separate requirements. US, Europa, Oceania applicants, a baccalaureate degree from an accredited institution as recognized by the appropriate governing body or bodies of the specific country from which the degree was issued. So basically, they want to see a degree that is a valid degree, came from valid academia sources throughout the world where you're coming from, not only in this country or if you're working in IAEM, the worldwide organization. Okay, when we look at, we have our levels of certification. We also have to look at how much training we have. So depending upon when we got our degree is going to add to how many hours of training we need for recertification and continuing on. That's one of the things with this. It's not a, you sign up for the certification, you get it once and you're done with it and you walk away. No, every 5 years you're going to go through pretty much the same process again. The longer it is between your certification and your degree requirements, the little more you have to do to make sure you're still current in the field. Okay, so we want to apply to it. What are we going to do? IAEM has everything is online now. So you can do everything right from your computer. You can fill out all the forms online. You can do everything there. The exam, registering for it and everything is all online. It's not the old days when, we submitted, a 1 or a 2 inch binder full of all the justification for our projects that we did. Now you just put it online, put the proof there, and you don't have to send a binder into them. You have to pay a certification fee. It's $420, excuse me, for IAEM members and $630 for non-members. Fees are non-refundable and not transferable. Now, you look at $420 for a member if you're a member, or $630 if you're a non-member. The average cost to join IAEM is just under $200. So if you join IAEM and pay the $420, you're still going to save money over the $630 it would cost you if you didn't join IAEM. So it is a monetary advantage to join. And by joining, you're getting into their database. You can be found by other emergency managers. You can work with them. You've got contacts in IAEM itself. If you need something, they know where to go and you can work with them to get there. You complete those 2 steps within 1 year. That's pass your exam, submit your application through the certification portal, and then you've got 5 years to worry about recertification. But you really can't wait that long. Certification is effective for a period of 5 years based on your initial certification. And I know Brian says my first one was in 2008, then in 2013 and 2018 I certified again. Now by the end of this year I have to recertify again. The best way to do it is once you get your first certification, as you start working on your projects, whatever that's going to be, you start keeping track of them. You're basically going to build a CEM recertification booklet right after you get your CEM, so that when it comes time for recertification, you don't have to try and backtrack and find, what did I do 3 years ago? You've already got it listed out. You can just pull it together and go ahead and start working from there. So that's why I say, you've got 5 years, but you really don't, because it's something that if you're going to keep and continue, you've got to keep track of it and how you're going. Okay, part of the recertification requirements, if we look at it, on top we have the requirement type, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and 25 years certified. So I look at it, I've done the 5, the 10, I'm basically working on about my 15 now. So I need 15 hours of general management training. General management training, they explain in here, is just your average ordinary subjects you would take for any other based program. The writing, technical research, things like that. And then we have 50 of emergency management. So those are going to be your strictly emergency management titles. Then you can have 20 hours of either or. So you kind of look at it, you've got to break it up. For your general management, there are other things you can do. There are a lot of FEMA courses, resident and it states, and other DHS trainers where you can meet these general requirements. So those are easy to do. And then for your initial certification, you have to meet 8 professional contribution categories. And those are things like do the exercises, do training, develop a course, all. So for me, I'm going to have to come up with about 5 professional contributions. that I have to list in there. I'm going to have to provide proof that I've done them, the contact people that were there, things like that. So that's why I say it's good to basically, once you get done, you start collecting your book, so that you don't have to try and remember what did I do and go back through a year or two's worth of calendars. This is the IAEM page. When you come up to it, you'll see this there, IAEM.com. This will come up. This one is for the certification, and it talks about the certified success. So we have a certified code of ethics. It talks you how to get started. That's the whole process, the application process. So everything is pretty much laid out for you to follow it. So it's easier if you're going to do this, just go into it. And like I says, work on, one little tab at a time. I've met this one. I know what I'm going to do for the next one or two, but don't try to keep everything in there because you're going to miss it and lose one. So it's easy to do that. So that's one of the reasons that they recommend that those of you who are going for it work with a CEM mentor. And IAM naturally has a list of CEM mentors. You can go to that tab, find who they are, find somebody that is in your your field that you have, and work with them to make sure you've got them all your boxes checked. Okay, there are some other things that we can do. IAM on their website, they do offer them, and they do have the entire webinar series posted on their website. It's a certification webinar series that kind of lays out the whole process. So you can sit there and watch that and go through that and give you an idea of what you want to do, how you want to get there. And then they talk, find a mentor. The commission encourages mentoring of applicants by current CEMs, and that's just basically to kind of go through it, to review what you've done, to say, well, it's real easy when we look at like the education and some of the contributions and things like that, to consider them separate, and they may not be. If you go through it, they most emergency managers, if you're going to be in a community, you're going to be a member of the LAPC. That's one of your jobs, period. So you really can't take credit for being in the LAPC because that's part of your job. When I did mine, I was basically the LAPC member for Manchester, but I was also the LAPC chairman for the entire Capital Region Emergency Planning Committee. So we had 41 communities who we were the LEPC for. So I couldn't take credit for my municipal LEPC, but I could take credit for the fact that I was chairman of the regional LEPC. So those are the things you kind of got to look at. For your own, you can't take credit for it, but if you're part of a region, you've got a lot more responsibilities. So it's something that would fall under the leadership category, and you can take credit for that. They also have what they call preparatory courses, and these review the program requirements, experience, education, contributions. They explain the AEM, how to go for it, tips for the program, and a review of the exam, standards, what the exam's based on, and that's that exam baseline thing that I had talked about a little while ago. And there's a question and answer period session. Now, these are scheduled by IAEM. They're given throughout the country. If you go to their webpage, you check for the preparatory course schedules. They will show them where they are. There is a fee, and if I recall, it's $525 to go through this. And you go through it, and they basically lay all this stuff out. It's a good idea to kind of go through it, to see what you're going through. If you haven't been in the profession that long, or if you're really not sure of how you fit into it. And I want to back up here for one thing. When we talked about the exam, they also review the exam tips and things like that, but the exam in most cases is pulled from programs that are out there, like FEMA's IS programs. So when I went through, granted that was a while ago, basically all I did was I just took about as many FEMA IS courses as I could to get ready for the exam. So that was kind of my studying for the CEM exam, and I passed it with that. So, if you haven't done too many FEMA IS courses, I would recommend kind of do them, because since the questions are sort of based on that, you get an idea of how the question is written. Okay, that's what I have for that. So now I think the rest of the time, unless Brian has something set up, is going to be questions and answers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Benyeda. That was an excellent presentation. If anybody has any questions, they can go ahead and pop them in the chat, raise your hand.
Are they letting me off easy?
I don't know. Like it, there's nothing yet.
Well, they also have my email too. So if you come up with something later on, you can always shoot one later on. Lauren.
Hi, I was wondering, what are some, you said, projects that IEM and CEM members would do?
Okay, they would be in the line of some of the questions we had talked about. You may be developing an exercise. You may be the controller in an exercise. You may be updating your EOC. One of them that I had to do when I went there, into Manchester, the previous coordinator wasn't there, so there wasn't a whole lot of an EOC. So basically, I ended up developing our EOC and our EOC response. We didn't have a set building we could use at that point in time. So what we ended up with is the council chambers, where the council would meet, for their meetings with the community. They had a big kind of horseshoe desk up front with microphones, with computer terminals on it and things like that. So basically, that's where our executive board would sit. All of the heads of the departments and the director would be up there in sort of a semicircle. They would have their own laptops. They could come in, plug in, so we could project it anywhere we needed to. We also, because we were in the town municipal building, the town hall, we had a number of phone lines in there. So what we had the phone company do was just basically all of the phones that weren't attached to a person, all of those lines were just dropped down into a box in the room that was locked, and we could plug in phones that we needed. And we also, in that same box, had antenna lines run up to ham radio and municipal antennas that were up on a roof. So, and then we had tote boxes full of all the things we needed. So if we had to declare, open the EOC, we would just push all the chairs aside. We would bring tables in. We would put the chairs in front of the tables. We would open up the boxes, plug in all the phones we needed, plug in radios that we needed, and basically in less than a half an hour, we could be up and operating an EOC in a room that didn't look like it would handle one. So that was a project there. We also did a regional full-scale exercise. Training programs are one. If you develop a training program for your organization, and the requirements are in there, how many hours it has to be, you can do that. You can do public service type things for the community. So there's a lot of options for those 8 categories that they do give you. Did that kind of answer your question?
Yes, that story made a lot more sense to me now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. CJ.
Hi, could you talk about the differences between a state certification and the international certification, and some differences between the two, and which one you feel would be more beneficial?
More beneficial, at least I feel, is the international. The state one's very well. Let me say this: if you're going to make your career in the state, then your state one is going to be very good, and probably you're going to need the state one if you're going to be, like I was, where I can be called up anytime to go into the county EOC. So that's where you get the state type information, the state discipline, the state knowledge, the state laws, responsibilities, the codes, all that kind of stuff. International goes into a little more detail because there's some things that at the state level you're not going to do. So the international CEM, AEM give you a more broad view of what like the rest of the world is doing. So you have an idea with that. You also have a broader outreach. You can find out things from IAEM and IAEM members that somebody around your area may not have done. But when you put a call out, you could probably find it from there. So the CEM itself has a little more broader reach because people who have been in it and been in the discipline for a while see it as a I don't want to say a higher level, but they see it as more work to get there. If you look at 3 years experience, I didn't have to have 3 years experience to get my Pennsylvania CEM. I just had to have so many EOC hours and do the training. So that's kind of one of the things I would look at for that. If you plan on being in your state for a while, get the state one first, or you may need it first, and then slow but surely work toward your CEM.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, so thank you everybody for attending. One of the things that he touched on was, of course, joining IAEM. I'm going to post the link here. I know there are a good bit of current Millersville students in here. I'm going to post the link to the Millersville IAEM page. If you want to check that out, if you haven't already joined, feel free to join. It'll be, very helpful throughout your time in the program. If there are no other questions, we will wrap it up and end it here. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Stay tuned to our social media and our webpage for further announcements regarding any other seminars and other events that we are hosting. Thank you again for joining, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Yes, and I'd also like to thank you, and you guys went easy on me, so thanks.